Welcome to Session 4 of Embedded Writing, Building a Reading and Writing Vocabulary. As students string words together to create phrases, sentences, and paragraphs, we should commit to introducing them to the most precise, accurate, and appropriate language so that they can successfully communicate and understand themselves as well as others. This session will focus on Marzano's 6 steps for vocabulary instruction, in hopes that it will provide you with a common tool to open doors to new learning, to cross-curricular collaborations, and to students recognizing the value of a rich, precise vocabulary. Let's get started. Your admit slip for today will be a quick inventory of your current classroom practices. Look through the list provided on your slide. Then write a brief description for each strategy that you know and or currently use. Now, don't worry if you aren't comfortable answering all of this now. I'm confident that you will have more than just a proficient understanding of these steps when this session is finished. Please pause the video to draft your descriptions. If you're working with a partner, you may want to draft descriptions together, or you can work independently first and then share when you're finished. Welcome back. Let's move right into your first learning task. You may record this information on any device you choose. Let's take a closer look at your investment in these 6 steps by answering the following questions. Which steps do you currently use? That's number 1. Number 2, how often do you use them? Number 3, do you hear and see students using the words you're studying? Do you share Tier 2 and Tier 3 academic vocabulary lists with your colleagues? Now, please pause the video as you answer these 4 questions. Welcome back. Now let's take an even closer look at these 6 steps, and I'll provide you with the description for each. Step number 1 says, provide a description, an explanation, or an example of the new term. But before you begin your description, you should determine what students already know about the word they intend to teach. Ask students to share what they think they know. You will listen for accurate details as well as misconceptions. This will help you formulate your own explanations. Avoid offering students a formal dictionary definition at this time. They'll just try to memorize it and copy. Try these things instead. Try introducing direct experiences like a field trip, a guest speaker, or a recently viewed video clip that provides examples of the term. Tell a story that integrates the term. Use a video or computer images as the stimulus for understanding the term. You could also ask students to do some investigation and then to present this information to the rest of the class in the form of a skit or a pantomime. You could use current events to help make the term applicable to something familiar to them. You could also describe your own mental pictures of this term. And finally, you could find or create pictures that exemplify the term. Well, let's take a look at step 2. Ask students to restate the description, explanation, or example in their own words. This is a critical step in the process. Students should not just copy your examples. Instead, they are learning to develop their own understanding of the word. As they repeat, you are again listening for accurate information as well as misconceptions. Step 3, ask students to construct a picture, a symbol, or a graphic representing the term or even a phrase. If students struggle with drawing, allow them to work together, and you can also accept rough examples that clearly represent an understanding of the term. You are not judging their ability to recreate like you would a work of art. Now, please note that combinations of these activities allow you to offer both linguistic and non-linguistic approaches to understanding the term. By doing this, students can then begin to visualize their own understanding of the term, use that term, and develop their understanding. Step 4, engage students periodically in activities that help them add to their own knowledge of the terms. During these activities, students are actively revising and adding to their own understanding of the term or the phrase. Step 5, periodically ask students to discuss the terms with each other. When you're using Step 5, you might consider cooperative strategies to aid in this sharing process. Students may compare their descriptions, describe their drawings, and their pictures to each other. Identify their own ahas in this process, or identify areas of disagreement or confusion as they seek clarification and accuracy. Now we're on to Step 6. Involve students periodically in games that allow them to play with the terms. Marzano tells us that games are one of the most underused instructional tools in education. Pause your video for just a moment to reflect on this statement. Why should or shouldn't we use games as instructional tools? If you'd rather work with a partner, take the time to dialogue about this. If you're working independently, I hope that you'll visit with a colleague or your instructional coach about this. Now, a link to McCrell's released Teaching Academic Vocabulary PowerPoint is provided on this slide for you, along with others. You may want to download this resource for future guidance and for the details that I just provided for you. Now, we've talked about how a teacher will use the 6 steps. Now, let's talk about the student's responsibilities. Notice that the tool provides at least half a page for each term. That's quite a different look from the long list of words I was given as a kid. As you look at the tool, students will write the term in the space provided in the top left corner of the page. Next, they will document their understanding of the word with a rating using 1 through 4, with 1 being, I've never heard anything like this before, to 4 being, I own that term. After hearing the teacher's description and repeating it back accurately, students will draft their own description. As they revisit the word, they will revisit and revise their descriptions. Then, to imprint their understanding in their brains, students will draw a representation of the term. It's possible that representations will be primitive to start, but with practice and exposure, students will illustrate with much more detail. You can be assured of that. After using this for several weeks in my classroom, I discovered that students were using almost an entire page to capture their understanding of selected terms and phrases. They also enjoyed comparing their initial representations to their latest, more sophisticated ones. So consider giving students the space they need. Now we're on to task number 4. You're familiar with the 6 steps, so let's take some time to determine how significant these steps may be to our students. The 2 texts that I've provided on this page should provide insight and clarity to your decision to incorporate Marzano's 6 steps for teaching academic vocabulary. To take notes, please use the WWF format and the quadrants to record the essential information you'll need to begin implementation into your lesson plans. If you're working with a colleague, pause the video to complete this task. You may even want to consider a quick jigsaw, where each of you reads a text and then reviews it with the other. Remember to include your instructional coach in dialogues about this practice. Please pause the video now as you complete your WWF notes. Welcome back, and that's a wrap. We've reached the end of session 4. After you've drafted this note, then send it to yourself and revisit its contents often. Here's your exit slip. Step 1. Draft an email or text to yourself. Offer insight to what you've learned by exploring in these 4 sessions. Given what you have learned, what practices are you particularly proud of? Why? After spending time with these sessions, what practices will you alter? Will you discard any instructional strategies after your time in study? Explain why. And finally, how will you keep your instruction fresh and relevant this coming year? Remember, after you finish drafting that, to send it back to yourself and keep it somewhere so you can go back and revisit it, especially in the times between December and the end of February, when it's more challenging to stay focused. During this series, I included teaching components that I wish I had known about when I started teaching over 30 years ago. When I discovered them, my students and I knew we would never return to my old practices. My hope is that these components will do the same for you. Thanks for joining me, and best wishes as you lay a firm foundation for your student writers. Please keep your notes as a reference for later conversations, and if you're taking this for college credit, you will also respond to the reflection questions provided by Mid-American Nazarene University. Again, thanks for joining me, and happy writing!